People. I know y'all ain't gonna like what I got to say right now, but let ICE do their job. Let ICE do their job, and y'all stay out the way. Because now, this 2026, you see now that they're not playing. So please, stay out of them people's way and let them do their job. That's all. Let them do their job. Y'all putting your lives on the line for people who fraudulent the government. Y'all putting your life on the line for people who don't even care about you. Come on. God rest her soul, man. God rest her soul. But if she was minding her business, she wouldn't be in that predicament right now. For real. She put herself in a line of fire when you're trying to run over an ICE agent. You just don't know how much these guys get tortured. So they tired. They tired of y'all not letting them do their job. I'm sorry, man. I'm not getting involved with it. I'm telling you. Because they are not playing no matter what color you are. They are not playing. They're here to do a job, and damn it, they gonna do it. If you like it or not. Stay out of them people's way, man, and save your own life. Because they're not playing with us. For real. If you put on them big boy drawers and step in front of them and think you're gonna use your vehicle as a weapon, they're gonna put on their big boy drawers and show you that they ain't nothing to play with, man. For real. I feel sorry for Shorty, man. 37 years old, young. But you put your life on the line. For what? For what? For people who don't even care about you? For real? Please, people, don't be a target. Please, people. They're not playing. You see what's going on out here. 2026 gonna be a different year for everybody. So please, stay in your lane and stop worrying about what everybody else is doing. Worry about what you're doing. For real. And I love you guys, and I'm out.
Alleged fraud taking place in Tim Walz, Minnesota, including at one alleged daycare center, misnamed the Learning Center. But according to state records, yesterday the center requested the closure of its license. They are now officially closed. Here with reaction, independent journalist Nick Shirley. First of all, you did phenomenal work. Your life has been threatened as a result. Is that correct?
Yeah, it has been. It's been completely changed over these past week or so as people have started to defend fraud and come after me for exposing the fraud that was happening.
Well, first of all, I applaud your work. Thank you for all your hard work. Thank you for your courage in doing all this. I give a lot of credit to you. Let's specifically tell people what you found and how you found it.
Yeah, so at these daycare centers, people in Minnesota have been telling me for months that there was fraud happening inside Minnesota. I met up with this man by the name of Dave who had all the evidence of exactly how much money these places were receiving. And then you start going to these daycares and they have stuff messed up, such as some simple stuff like leering versus learning. And there's no children at any of the daycares, yet they're receiving millions of dollars. And there's just open and blatant fraud taking place inside of the state of Minnesota with all these welfare programs they have set up.
And now we're finding out it's billions of dollars. When you began your investigation, did you ever think it would be that staggering amount of money? And as James Comer said, that's only the tip of the iceberg?
Yeah, well, within one day, we found over $110 million in fraud in just one afternoon. So if there's obviously millions and then billions. They have it estimated around 9 billion right now, but some people have said all the way upwards of 80 to $100 billion in fraud.
Yeah. Let's talk about, you did a number of reports on this, and you now have been vindicated. You've been proven right. What are the specific threats against you? And I pray and hope that you're taking measures to protect yourself and your family.
Yeah. So people have messaged me. They've sent me photos of saying that this is going to be me next, and it's a photo of a dead person in a ditch. They've said I'll be Kirked next, and they've doxed me. They've doxed my family, all for just exposing fraud. You would think this would be a time where people could say, oh, amazing, we're going to figure out where our taxes are going. But no, people made this a race issue. They made this a religion issue, when at the end of the day, it was just about people's hard-earned money going to fraudulent businesses.
Yeah. Nick, I don't know, are you planning to go full-time into journalism? I think you got a bright career ahead of you.
Well, yeah, I've been doing it for quite some time. And for me, this was just going to be a normal week where I just upload another video, because I've been doing it for over 100 weeks. I haven't missed a single upload. And then for this to happen, it's been amazing to see the effect. And now you're seeing that all these left-wing outlets that came after me are now being proven wrong. And people like Tim Walz have stepped down from running for re-election because of the fraud. And so, like you said, it's all been truthful, and people can't debunk the truth.
Everybody agrees that this guy, Maduro, is a narco-terrorist, illegitimate, stole the election more than once. For years, nobody did anything about it. We're sick and tired of these politicians that just bullshit on and on without doing anything. Trump's different, and when I'm governor of California, I'm going to be different and solve problems.
We're going to win so much, you may even get tired of winning. And you'll say, please, please, it's too much winning. We can't take it anymore. Mr. President, it's too much. And I'll say, no, it isn't. We have to keep winning. We have to win more. We're going to win more.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Steve Hilton Show, and Happy New Year. This is 2026, a huge year for all of us in California, a huge year across the country. We've got elections this year that will determine the balance of power in Congress, and obviously, close to my heart, the balance of power here in California. I'm running for governor. It's now 16 years of one-party rule in California. The results are a complete disaster, and much of that we're going to talk about in the show today, some of the key aspects of that. We've got two conversations that you don't want to miss. One is with Susan Shelley, who's just bringing us incredible information about the anatomy of the fraud that is going on in California, how it connects to what we've seen blow up in Minnesota. We've just seen Tim Walz drop out of the governor's race there because of this fraud scandal that's been exposed there. Of course, it's so much worse here in California. And it's not just the fraud story in itself that is important, it's what it says about one-party rule in California. We're going to get into that with Susan Shelley. And the other massive story that we're going to be looking at this week is, of course, it's the 1-year anniversary of the LA wildfire disaster.
Governor, you got a second? Governor, I live here, Governor. That was my daughter's school, Governor. Please tell me what you're going to do. I'm not going to hurt him, I promise.
I'm literally talking to the president right now to specifically answer the question of what we can do for you and your daughter.
Can I hear it? Can I hear your call? Because I don't believe it.
Every aspect of that tells a story about the combination of ideological extremism and governing incompetence in California that is has just resulted in all these terrible outcomes for people. We've got Rachel Darvish joining us today on the show. She became literally world famous because she was the person a year ago now in the Palisades resident, who famously approached Gavin Newsom when he was there in the Palisades, and he had his shades on. Do you remember that scene on the TV? And she was a mom and went up to Gavin Newsom and challenged him on his response and so on. And he pretended he was talking to the president, and she exposed that lie. She joins us today on the show. Very important conversation about where we are a year on. But I want to start today really by putting all of this together. What's been going on in California? 16 years of one-party rule, the fraud scandal, the wildfires, in the context of what we've just seen happen in our country and in our hemisphere, very important word, and you'll know where I'm going with this point, which is the big story we've seen in the last few days, the incredible arrest of Nicolas Maduro and his wife in his home on the most fortified military compound in Venezuela, in Caracas, the capital city, with this extraordinary operation, this flawless operation for our military. But I wanted to explain what that says about what is happening and going to happen here in California, because it all comes back to one thing, which is strength and clarity and leadership. What we've got going on in California, and it's really highlighted by some of the conversations we can have on the show today, is a total absence of leadership. Nothing ever gets done. That's really the story here, because we've ended up in this situation in California where, despite being the world's fourth largest economy, and that's something, of course, I'm very proud of, and want to take us to the third largest economy in the world when I'm governor, we have terrible outcomes on everything, the worst outcomes on absolutely everything. The highest taxes in the country, the highest cost for everything that matters, gas, electric, water, insurance, rent, housing, everything. The worst business climate out of all 50 states, the highest rate of poverty, the highest rate of unemployment. Is a complete catastrophe. And actually at the heart of it is the fact that you've had, in this 16 years of one-party rule, a total absence of leadership. No one is doing anything about any of this. The problems just get worse and worse and worse. They are completely evident to everyone. You've got the homelessness crisis, which just gets worse and worse. They spend more and more money. Nothing ever happens. A huge part of that is the fraud story that we're going to be talking about. You've got the crisis in our public schools, among the worst results in the country. Half the kids in California public schools don't meet basic standards on English, 2/3 don't meet basic standards in math. It's a catastrophe, destroying opportunity for a generation. Businesses are leaving, people are leaving. Everything is a disaster. And it's very evident, it's very obvious. And you've got these people in charge, and it's these machine politicians like Gavin Newsom, like Karen Bass, like Kamala Harris. She's another one who threatened to run for governor. Now she's, looks like she's going to be running for president. They're all the same. This is what you get from one-party rule. These machine politicians who have no clue how to actually get anything done. They just sort of sit there in office, enjoying the perks of it, making statements, doing press conferences, parading around like Gavin Newsom around the wildfires, talking about how he's leading a Marshall Plan to rebuild LA. A year later, nothing's happened. Just total bullshit. Just bullshit merchant. They just talk and talk and talk, and nothing ever happens. And the problems just get worse. And they've built this machine, this corrupt machine in California, funded by the government unions, that just keep putting these people in office. And the problems get worse. Everyone can see the problems. It's very obvious. The data tells the story. Human experience tells the story. We can all see with our own eyes what a complete disaster it is. You drive around, the roads are full of potholes. We have the worst, we're ranked 50th out of 50 on the quality of our roads. Every day you see, you open your gas bill, you fill up your car with gas, open your electric bill, everything. It's just a disaster. And yet nothing ever happens. Why? Because they just don't understand how to get anything done. It's talk, talk, talk. Just one example that captures it so perfectly. And it does relate to the fires, which is Karen Bass, Mayor Karen Bass, about 4 months into the whole thing. You've heard me talk about this before, but it just really gets at what I'm driving at today with this. There's this sense of what 2026 is all going to be about, certainly for me here in California, which is Karen Bass stood there. She had a press conference, put out a social media post, and it said, "I have just signed an executive order streamlining permitting so we can rebuild LA." About 4 months after the fires. And I remember seeing that thinking, okay, fine, she's finally done something useful. It's late, but whatever, that's good. Then I thought, well, I'll click the link. It was a video embedded in this post, and which is a clip from her actual press conference where she made this announcement about streamlining permitting. This is what she actually said. "I have just signed an executive order tasking agency heads with developing paths forward to rebuilding LA." Total bullshit. A process. She wasn't actually doing anything. You know that nothing's going to happen, and a year on, we know that nothing did happen, and that's one of the conversations we have on the show today. And I'll be in the Palisades highlighting there's a massive protest. Nothing happened because this person believes that tasking agency heads and setting up some kind of bureaucratic process is the same as doing something. It is not. But that's the mentality. That's why year after year after year, nothing happens. The problems get worse. They just grow their bloated budgets. What is she talking about? Tasking agency heads. She's probably hired more bureaucrats, more agencies, doing nothing, issuing reports. We're going to hear that in relation to the high-speed rail fiasco today. Just reports and bureaucracy and bullshit. Nothing ever happens. Now let's look at what happened with Venezuela, President Trump. So here's a guy, Maduro, who's been indicted since 2020 and has been deemed not the legitimate president for years, not just by Trump, by Biden, by the European Union, by countries all across the world. Everybody agrees that this guy, Maduro, is a narco-terrorist who's illegitimate, stole the election more than once, shouldn't be is not the legitimate president, is looting his country, is fueling and funding the drug trade and terrorism, is basically supported by Cuba. Everyone agreed about that for years. Nobody did anything about it. No one did anything. You had these, the declarations of how terrible it all was, and oh yes, and sanctions. Nothing ever happened. But now you have President Trump, who's just not like that. He's not like these machine politicians. He's a practical, problem-solving business guy on every issue. And so he's got no time for this kind of bureaucratic mindset. It's like, no, if there's something that needs to be fixed, I'm going to fix it. The border's open, let's close it. They're not having reports and issuing, and initiating reviews and policy. No, just close the effing border, right? And he did it almost overnight. It's one of the most incredible examples of purpose and real effective government I think anyone's ever seen. And then you look at this situation with Venezuela. Sorry, this guy is causing mayhem in our backyard. We're going to deal with it. He's indicted. He's a criminal. Let's go and get him. And no one took that decision before. No one even thought of doing that because they're just not like that. They're machine politicians, bureaucratic mindset. Nothing ever happens. It's all about a process and saying things instead of doing things. And so here you have a president who just gets it done with an extraordinary example of leadership. I mean, the risks involved in something like this. Can you imagine? I mean, look back to what happened with Jimmy Carter, the famous, it's one of the first memories I have of global events, actually, which was the attempt to rescue the hostages in Iran after the the Islamic Revolution in 1979 and the occupation of the embassy. And it was a total disaster, and the helicopters crashed in the desert when they were staging to do the thing. It was a complete humiliation. There are massive risks associated. What they did here, much, much harder to get into the most fortified military base in the country where the president was housed in a safe house. Incredibly difficult. What a risk. And yet Trump took that risk. And the military executed it flawlessly. And we have one of the most extraordinary examples of strength and leadership I think I've ever seen. I think it makes the Bin Laden raid look like, I mean, obviously that was an amazing operation. But this seems to me much harder. And they did and they did an incredible job. But what it gets to, and I think what ties all this together, is just we're sick and tired of these politicians that just bullshit on without doing anything. And Trump's different. And when I'm governor of California, I'm going to be different. We're going to get to grips with all this and solve problems instead of endlessly talking and nothing happening. That's my message for 2026. Happy New Year. Joining us now, first show of the year, first conversation of the year with our friend Susan Shelley. It's going to be a very big and exciting 2026 in California. Lots going on. And it's been huge in terms of one particular issue that we're going to be talking about, which is fraud. That's been a massive national issue, Susan. Of course, as we've been saying, you and I have talked about it, and I've been out there saying, it's whatever's happening in Minnesota, which is where the national story has been mainly focused, it's 1,000 times worse in California. So you got some thoughts on that, and kind of part of it, but not exactly, the the bullet train, as I sometimes refer to it, the bullshit train, which has got some new, totally insane announcement that you're going to talk us through. But let's start with the fraud. Where are you at on that story? We haven't talked since the Minnesota thing really blew up over the holidays.
The one thing I've noticed from the Minnesota story is how it gives us a roadmap for finding where the fraud is happening and how to uncover it in California. What we have seen in California is audit after audit and study after study and report after report. They all come to the same conclusion. We don't have enough data. We don't have enough reporting of the programs and how much they're getting and how much they're spending and who they're helping. We have no metrics. So this happened in the Los Angeles case, which is under federal supervision because there's a settlement of a lawsuit from 2020, and federal judge David Carter is overseeing it. He ordered an outside report, and what it found is, who knows? We've got billions of dollars missing because we don't have adequate
So that was,
reporting.
let's just break it all down because there's so many things swirling around. I'd forgotten about that. So because you've got because we're talking about homelessness, right? You've got the one number that's out there is the state auditor, was it, saying there's a 24 billion question mark, right? That's statewide.
Right. And that was the same story, that there wasn't enough data reported.
Right. But let's just go to your LA court, because that's interesting. I know we have talked about it before, but to refresh our memory of the origin of that and what's going on with the LA situation.
Well, there was a lawsuit by some business groups and residents in downtown LA against the city and county of Los Angeles, filed in 2020. And then the pandemic hit, and the whole thing wound up under the supervision of Judge David Carter, who's a federal judge who had overseen a similar homelessness lawsuit in Orange County. So since 2020, that's been under his supervision.
So what was the lawsuit about? What were they suing over?
They were suing because all this money had been spent and people had not been housed, and there were still encampments on the sidewalks impeding pedestrians,
so they were suing
impeding
in their
businesses.
capacity as taxpayers, like what's happened.
Right.
Was that right? Or business owners affected by it? Or?
Yes, exactly. There had previously been lawsuits on behalf of homeless people saying you can't arrest us. This was a lawsuit by business and residents saying the city and county are not providing for these people. So it was a different kind of lawsuit. It was trying to hold them accountable for all the tax money and the various other federal grants that they're spending, and no results at all. So the suit was filed in 2020. The pandemic hit. By 2022, they had reached a settlement with the city and with the county, and they weren't going to go any further with it. Now, since then, we had the case in Oregon where the Supreme Court had a very, very strong ruling saying that cities can enforce an anti-camping ordinance. Prior to that, it wasn't clear that they
Grants
could.
Pass versus Oregon.
That's the one. So the city of Los Angeles still doesn't want to enforce an anti-camping ordinance, although they have the right to. But they're in this settlement where they're promising to do a certain number of housing units, help a certain number of people, certain number of shelters. They've got all these metrics that they're supposed to meet in this settlement that Judge Carter is overseeing. Well, they have not met the benchmarks. So the plaintiffs went back to court and they want sanctions. They want the city forced to do this in some way. And the judge ordered an audit or a report. It wasn't exactly an audit. And what the report found from these outside accountants is that the programs were not reporting. The Los Angeles Homeless Services Authority was not reporting. They were not reporting adequately so that people could see what the invoices were for when they were paid. If there were any invoices, if anyone could find anything, there just wasn't enough reporting. Well, in Minnesota, we are seeing that's exactly what they did. They signed up people who were fictional, multiple people on the same social security number, that kind of thing, people who didn't exist, children who didn't exist in daycares, people who didn't exist in healthcare, or they signed up real people and did fake invoices. And so billions of dollars in Minnesota, obviously a much smaller population than California, billions of dollars in fraud through these fake invoices for fake people.
So just to be clear, the combination we're looking at here in California is fake homeless people, taxpayers paying money to help either fake homeless people or to help real homeless people with fake services.
With services that are not being provided. Exactly. Right. So you have people out there signing up people on the street, and then somebody is monetizing that with invoices for services. When you have these permanent supportive housing developments that Los Angeles and all of California are supposed to be doing, where you have apartment buildings and wraparound services. That's the model. That's the housing first model that's in state law. Somebody's invoicing for services. Do we know if they're being provided? That's what we saw in Minnesota. Who is invoicing for services? Where are the people they were supposed to be provided to? Were they really provided? So this is something that I think gives us a roadmap. And it's clear that in California, our politicians do not want us going down this road. Karen Bass has blocked the city controller, Kenneth Mejia, from doing an actual audit He's the city controller. He's already on the
Wait,
payroll with a
how
full
has
staff.
when did that happen?
That's in this Los Angeles Alliance lawsuit against LA City and County. When the judge ordered an outside report on the spending, the city controller said, I can do it. And the mayor said, I refuse to allow it. And she asserted that she can control whether the controller can audit her program. So she has a program called Inside Safe. He wanted to audit it. She would not allow it.
That's really interesting because also he's a sort of Mamdani type far left socialist, right?
He came in that way, but then he
But
saw
now
the
he's become
numbers.
kind of reasonable, hasn't he?
He saw the numbers.
Yeah, it's really interesting.
He had some very interesting comments about not only Inside Safe, but also what they're going to spend to remodel the convention center before the Olympics.
So he's turned into a real guardian of public money, actually.
Much more so than you would expect.
Yes, exactly. Okay,
Yes.
so this is super interesting. So I just want to break it down. There's so many pieces because there's all these things being thrown around. So the state of play with Los Angeles is that the inside audit that could have been done by the city controller was blocked by the mayor. So that's not happening.
Right.
Amazing that the mayor can do that. I mean, at the state level, I'm working with Herb Morgan, who's running for state controller across California. He's going to be a huge part of this whole fraud busting process. In fact, we're taping this on Monday, the 5th of January, Susan. By the time people will see or hear this, Herb and I will have made an announcement. We're doing it in San Francisco today, outside the EDD building, Employment Development Department, which has lost $55 billion, by the way, during the pandemic. So it's a symbol of the fraud, about what we're going to do about it. And as I understand it, no one can stop the state control if they really want to do it from auditing every organization that receives state money. But it's interesting that at the city level, she can stop him. And
she has asserted that. So.
Interesting. Okay, so where are we on LA's audit process? Stopped? Is something happening?
There was a report. The controller is not auditing Inside Safe, the mayor's homelessness program. It's a lot of money, and we're spending even more every year. It just seems to be even more, and the results are sketchy.
And they keep bringing in these taxes to pay for it. The mansion tax was supposed to pay for homeless services.
That's right. And the sales tax, yes, and the sales tax was raised also a 0.5% permanently for homelessness services. That was in November of 2024. The voters agreed to do that. So this is a concern because it's billions of dollars, and the audit trail is being blocked. So what Minnesota's showing us is where by Mayor Bass and by Gavin Newsom.
Right, that's what I wanted to come on to, because he vetoed a bill that would have done this. Is that right?
That is correct. In September of 2024, he vetoed Assembly Bill 2903, which was a bipartisan bill that required programs receiving state funds to report to the California Interagency Council on Homelessness. And then that council would have to formulate some method of informing the public of how this was going. And Governor Newsom vetoed it. So once again, the state auditor did an audit, found that $24 billion really couldn't be accounted for. The same problem, there hadn't been enough reporting of data. And so the legislature passed a bipartisan bill requiring the reporting of the data, and the governor vetoed it. How do you look at this and say it's anything but a cover-up of fraud?
So wait, again, let's get the sequence. We've talked about all these things before, but it's all sort of coming into focus in a way we haven't seen before, thanks to what's been uncovered in Minnesota. So the process in statewide now, not LA, was that you had that state auditor report. The state auditor report is a kind of mandatory. Every 2 years they do some kind of report. Is that right? Or did they choose to do homelessness?
It was requested by Assemblyman Josh Hoover, I believe. And so when a member of the legislature requests the California state auditor to look into something, I think they get a legislative committee to make a formal request. I don't think it's just any individual, but I'm not sure. So the California state auditor did that audit on request, found $24 billion. Really, we don't know where it went.
And
I don't want to say it's unaccounted for exactly, but we don't know where it went.
Don't know where it went. And so they just said, we can't prove that it's fraudulent. We just don't know. That's what the state auditor. We just don't know.
Right. Exactly.
And in response to that 24 billion finding, they passed AB 2903.
Correct.
to say, right, now we need the information. And that's what Gavin Newsom blocked.
Exactly.
And that's where we stay today.
And that's where we stay today. So both in Los Angeles, Mayor Bass, and at the state level, Governor Newsom, these massive amounts of money are going into homelessness programs, and we don't know where it went. Now, it's arguable that this is a criminal enterprise on the part of some of these providers where the money is being siphoned. Do we know that? Not yet. And all of this lack of reporting prevents us from finding out.
Brilliant. And then, terrible, but brilliant for you to lay that out so clearly to help us understand. When you look at this process and specifically the Newsom blocking, it's very interesting because I remember at the time that blew up as a story, I think his argument was, we already have supervision and auditing going on. This is unnecessary. Is that right? Do you remember what he said?
I do remember it was something along those lines. This is not necessary. We already do it. But we don't really do it because where's the money and why do we still have such a crisis? And
the 24 billion, just to be clear, is not the total amount of homelessness spending. It's just what they felt they didn't know where it went.
Correct.
Yeah. Well, we've got a number that we're announcing today, which is based on this is statewide, not just beyond homelessness, which is a very, very, I just want to be big caveat. It's a preliminary review. Herb Morgan and I, as I mentioned, who's we're working together. He's running for state controller. So about a month ago, December the 3rd, we set up in response to the Minnesota thing blowing up over the Thanksgiving break. And one of the things that came out of that was that you had a lot of whistleblowers in Minnesota state government and local government who were trying to tell the world what was going on. And for years, and Tim Walz and the Democrat machine really aggressively silenced them and intimidated them and did everything they could to block this from coming out. And so one of our, we're not elected yet. I'm not the governor yet. Herb isn't the state controller yet. We can't do anything in terms of getting in there directly, individually. But one thing that we did do, and I was to set up an anonymous tip line, as it were, califraud.com. And we've had hundreds of tips. And we've been going through them, diligently in the last few weeks. And there are really interesting areas that haven't been talked about before in terms of this whole situation. They're not, it's not that people are unaware of them, they're just not in the conversation that we're having. For example, public sector pensions, there's this practice called double dipping. There's just all sorts of things. So we're going to be laying that out today. And Susan, our estimate, based on the size of budgets and just a kind of ballpark figure for what we think the real size of the fraud is in California, is about 250 billion, and a huge amount. And that's probably an underestimate. And this is starting to explain this point that you and I and others we've discussed all along, which is, how is it that we have the highest taxes in the country, that they've doubled the budget of the state of California in the last 10, they've nearly doubled it in the last 5 years, doubled. And yet everything seems to be worse. How? Well, now we're starting to know.
It does look like the mechanism works something like this. You have to sign up more and more people to receive government services. You have to expand the population that's receiving some kind of government service. Of course, the pandemic was very useful for that because everybody needed help when they couldn't let anyone work and the schools were closed and all the rest. So you sign up more people for services. Now you have names and social security numbers. Now you can do invoices that are not legitimate. That looks to be where we should be looking. And it's not the fault of the people who were signed up for the benefits. It's the fault of the people who are manipulating that data to do phony invoices. Could be healthcare, could be food stamps, could be anything. In fact, the federal government is going to ding California over its improper payment rate for the SNAP program, Supplemental Nutrition Assistance. They're going to force California to pay a portion of those benefits because the payment error rate is above, I think it's above 10%. And it should be below 6%, according to the federal government, and it's been as high as 13%.
And again, how did they know that? Now, I mean, presumably that's before any kind of detailed audit.
It's a good question. I'm not sure how they know that. But they do this every year. This is not new under the Trump administration. California's been doing corrective action plans since 2017, every year, because the payment error rate was too high. And what the Trump administration has changed is they're going to try to enforce it. So it's more than just file a report. Now it's file a report and pay part of the cost of the program because you're not managing it correctly.
Yeah, I mean, this is the central issue. I mean, because if you go back to, well, it's not the only thing, because I'm just thinking, really big picture about what's going wrong in California and why we have this terrible situation where, despite all our advantages, everything we got going for us, we have the highest unemployment rate in the country, the highest poverty rate in the country, the highest cost for everything that matters, gas, electric, we've talked about this, and this huge bloated government, right? There are basically two parts of it. There is the regulatory state, the end, especially driven by climate. That's driving a lot of the cost increases in terms of gas prices, electric bills, and so on. Water, it affects the housing situation because you can't build anything because of their insane climate rules. So there's that, the regulatory red tape morass. But another huge, what we're seeing here is the other big part of it, which is the bloated welfare state in California that they've created. And this goes right to the heart of what you just said. So they more and more people are made to be recipients of government largesse. That, of course, increases taxes. That's why the tax burden is so high. That's a huge factor in driving out businesses and successful people. They want to now increase it with the wealth tax. We'll probably talk about that on another episode, Susan. And so this fraud thing is not just, it's really the heart of what's going wrong in California.
It certainly could be. And then when you talk about investigating it, it has this armor because it looks like it's helping people. And maybe it is helping people, but it's helping people with some percentage of the money, not all the money. A big percentage of the money is going somewhere else because people are not being helped enough. With what the state of California is spending on homelessness services, it could probably buy 3-bedroom houses for everybody. Instead, we're paying for these endless wraparound services and these endless reports and bureaucracy. And where is the money going? I don't think it's going to the people who it's intended to go to.
Yes. Very helpful. Brilliant, Susan. Thank you. All right, let's go to another kind of massive
management issue.
Oh my gosh, it's just this ridiculous. We laugh because it's so ridiculous, but it's also infuriating because it's our money. What's the latest on the high-speed? I don't even want to say it.
The California High-Speed Rail Authority would like everyone's opinion. They're looking for public comment on their Los Angeles to Anaheim route. They've
Oh, that famous route that's like ready to go.
The famous route, yes. Now, if you've been following the news, you know that the bullet train is not going from Los Angeles to Anaheim. It's trying to go from Merced to Bakersfield, and then it has a bus that goes from Bakersfield to Los Angeles, and we don't even have any of that. So what is this Los Angeles?
Wait, just stop for a second. Is the bus thing real, or are you just making that up?
No, this is real. It's in the business plan. I could send you the screenshots.
I haven't actually heard that. I just thought they were sort of not specifying how they were.
No, they had to, in order to meet the conditions of the financing from various places, they had to have a train that goes from San Francisco to Los Angeles. And so they mapped it out, and it goes on conventional rail from San Francisco to Merced, and then the high-speed rail to Bakersfield. And then in Bakersfield, you get on a bus, the high-speed rail bus, and that takes you to Los Angeles. This is real. This is real. Well, I mean, they're not actually doing it, but that's in the business plan. There's a high-speed rail bus, the HSR bus. You can look it up, and it takes you from Bakersfield to Los Angeles. So what is this that they need public comment on their environmental impact report of their high-speed rail leg from Los Angeles to Anaheim? What is this? Well, they have to do environmental impact reports. And so they did. I have no idea what they spent on it, but the summary is 100 pages. And there are 98 separate PDF files of all the different chapters. So this is the situation. They don't have the funding for this leg of the bullet train. They absolutely are never going to have the funding. But they are proceeding as if they will be able to build it when funds become available. Funds will never become available.
But they're spending money on this. This doesn't happen for nothing, this EIR.
Exactly. So you should open a consulting firm that does environmental impact reports. And then you can go out and you can say, I see historical and cultural resources here, and I'm going to do a report on them because if the train goes by, it might vibrate them, and that might be bad for the historical and cultural resources in this area. And over here, soil, and over here, water. And of course, that would all be important if they were building it. But imagine if every time you bought a lottery ticket, you had to pay for an environmental impact report for the house and the plane you were going to buy if you had the money, if you won the lottery. Would you buy a lottery ticket? Of course you wouldn't, because you'd lose money every time. And this is what's happening with the bullet train. We are losing money studying what we're never going to be able to build. And one more point on this, they've passed supposedly funding for this. This is the hidden tax, now called the Cap and Invest program, has been extended by the legislature and the governor through 2045. It's a hidden tax on energy, makes everything in California more expensive as a result, and $1 billion a year will go to the bullet train. So it's a hidden tax for the bullet train. It's not enough to build the Merced to Bakersfield line because they're not going to get the money in front. If they get the money year by year as it dribbles in, and it's not absolutely certain how much they get because it's variable. Supposedly they would borrow against that revenue for bonds, but they probably won't be able to because the president has targeted the Cap and Invest program as a possibly illegal burden on energy use because you have to pay to use fossil fuels. You have to pay this extra tax, and he has targeted that. So if you're a bond investor, you have to be advised of this risk that the whole program could go away and there might be no funds to repay what you've loaned.
This is amazing. But I know we've talked about this before again, is that a lawsuit against the Cap and Invest, as it's now called, or what is that?
I don't think there's a lawsuit against it. It has been renewed, but what the president has done is instruct the attorney general to investigate all the laws and regulations in the country that do this kind of thing, that put additional fees or taxes.
There's an investigation.
It's a look to see if the laws are preempted by federal law or otherwise unconstitutional. So we don't have an answer on that yet.
So that could result in suing to stop it.
Exactly. That could result in the federal government suing to stop it, but that hasn't happened yet.
Insane. Absolutely infuriating because it's our money. I'd love to know how much, if we just know how much this particular EIR cost. Any idea about that?
No, I have no idea how much they're spending on the LA to Anaheim route of the bullet train. I'll see if I can find that out.
Okay.
But there are public hearings if anyone wants to go. There's going to be one on January 26th on Zoom. You can ask questions about the historical and cultural resources that will be vibrated by the train going by because they've studied it.
The train that's never going to happen. Unbelievable. Okay. Thank you. We'll check in soon. Happy New Year.
To you
this
too.
is why I'm running for governor. We've got to stop all this insanity. And we'll see how the year unfolds. Thank you so much, Susan. See you soon.
Thank you, Steve.
All right. As promised, I am very excited to welcome my friend Rachel Darvish. We've been working together. We're going to be working together even more during the course of this very important year for California. Now, the world knows you, Rachel, and I want to start here with how, you came to prominence around the tragedy of the wildfires, the totally preventable, as we've discussed and we'll get into today, catastrophe of the LA wildfires a year ago, almost exactly. In fact, we will be appearing together in the Palisades. I don't know when people will be watching or listening to this, but we're taping it on Monday, the 5th of January, and we'll be there together on the 7th, which is the 1-year anniversary. And you really hit the headlines because you were the person, for those who haven't seen or met you before, who absolutely exposed the total deceit and shallowness of Gavin Newsom when you went up to him in front of the world's cameras and challenged him over his response to what was going on. And there he was in his shades, trying to be cool, trying to get into a car and escape from you, pretending that he was talking to the president. It was still Joe Biden then. Tell us that whole story, and then we'll get into what happens next and what we're working on.
Hey, Steve, thanks so much for having me. This has been completely surreal for me. I woke up on the morning of January 7th thinking this is just another normal day for me. It was a normal, great day. It was a day that my kid goes back to school. Everyone's excited. Everyone's going back to their normal ways. And then the catastrophe hit, the disaster hit. So I spent that entire day actually wondering when I was going to see my daughter again. I did not have access to her. I dropped her off at school and didn't see her. So my fire day was probably as typical, which is a sad way of saying it, as everyone else in the Palisades. We share the same thing. We share this day in memory. That day came and went, but that evening I got a phone call from a Fox News producer who asked me if I could come on the show, and I did. And that was, I think, in the middle of the night sometime for us here in California. And someone at Sky had picked it up, and they called me and asked if they could pick me up and drive home and check out our house and see the status of my community. I think I had said a few controversial things about the mayor not being in town. I think I had said some things like she was in Ghana, and I know what the weather patterns are, and so why wasn't she here? Anyhow, we ended up in a car ride, and on our way, we stopped by my daughter's preschool. And as we were leaving, I happened to spot a man wandering aimlessly in the street, across the street from the preschool. And I'm thinking, the sunglasses and the hair and the aimlessness, this all reminds me of just one person. And it was Governor. And I did hit the car hard, and I said, please, guys, turn around. And they did. And you have to give them some credit, Steve. They didn't know me, right? They didn't know me. They didn't know what I was about to do.
So you're literally with a TV crew?
I'm with a TV crew.
Right.
I was with Martha Kellner and her crew. And they didn't know me other than I'm a fire victim. And they followed me. When I said, there's the governor, just follow me.
Yes, because by the way, it's not is it a UK or is it Sky News?
Sky News, Sky
Right.
Australia, yes. And you have to
Oh, Australia, okay, yeah.
I am a victim right here. I don't know where I'm going to be living. I'm looking at fire through the place that I went to preschool and elementary school, and I'm standing here and I see this governor of mine. And I thought, what an opportunity. You know, what am I doing? Because when I look back at those days, I really didn't know what I was doing. I didn't, Steve. I was in a trance.
Just to be clear, had you lost your house? I mean,
didn't know. I did not know at this time what.
So you'd had to evacuate.
We all evacuated on the day of the fire. I'm in a hotel, and I appear on Fox, and Sky News contacts me, and I say, "Great, let's go. Let's tell the story. I want to see."
Because this is a few days after. How many days afterwards?
The Sky News occurred 2 days after.
2 days, so it's very soon afterwards. But yeah,
and the town was still burning.
Still burning, exactly.
And the governor's, walking around town. So we caught him, and I genuinely wanted to have a conversation with him. And what was running through my mind? Everything that had come to me for the last 24 hours. All of our friends were losing homes by the minute, by the second. I had my phone next to me in the hotel room, and every minute, every second it would go off, and another friend would say, I just saw the video of our house, it's gone. And I didn't know. All of our cameras had gone off, so I had no idea. And fortunately, with the crew, we got to drive by, saw the house, but then we end up there. And every single emotion, I think, that every single Palisadian had rushed up in me. Where was the water? I remember wondering, where was the water? I remember sitting on a hill, coming down the hill, and not seeing a single fire truck. I did not see a single police car. I did not get a single notification saying that your government cares about you. I got a citizen notification. That's private. That's how I actually evacuated. I didn't hear the mayor's voice telling me, get your stuff together. This is real. So when we ended up in front of the governor, it was like all these emotions coming in together. And really, when I asked the questions, they were personal. They were coming from me. I'm wondering, what are people going to do? You think it's a joke that people have worked this hard to live in one home and build another? That's not a joke. That comes from a lot of hard work. This is what the reality of these people's lives is going to be like. So when the governor looks at me and tells me, oh, we're going to do an investigation into the hydrants. Where is it? It's a year later, right, Steve? I know if you were governor, I'd have known why there wasn't enough water in my hydrants. Why wasn't the thing full, man? And you're telling me now that even if we had all the water in the world, we still wouldn't have been able to fight this fire? Get me new people.
Exactly. Tell us just a little about that moment, though, because, you know, when you went up to, I mean, it was just such one of the literally all-time great. Everyone will remember that. Everyone's talking. It was one of the defining moments of the whole crisis. You challenging him and his response. Just talk us through that in detail.
Then you know me, first of all. You'll know that whatever stands in front of me, I'm going to get to and get past. I know there were a lot of concerns about security, but if you could hear me, one of the first things I say is I'm not going to hurt him. I wish I could have hurt him psychologically, emotionally. I wish he could have felt me. And what went into it was a lot of dismissiveness. You know, I'm asking you questions and you have your shades on while you're talking.
So was he walking away from you? I mean, what was the scene? Because I mean, I'm
actually leaving. He was getting ready to get in his car. He was actually walking aimlessly behind his vehicle. And he was trying to get back into it, which is when I spot him and I sped up a little bit. I think you can see me running a little bit faster. I feel like he thinks that was one of the worst moments he could have ever had, ever, to be caught at that moment. For a guy like that, you know, imagine what the correct response would have been. Hug me, you know, hold me. I could have fallen to the ground at that moment. I am looking at my daughter's school, at her friends. These are 3-year-olds, 2-year-olds coming to this school. Their entire existence is now taken away from them. Mind you, this was the day after. So I wish I would have asked him, where were you yesterday? Why wasn't the hydrant in front of Methodist preschool not working? Why? And when I said to him, I would check every single hydrant myself. Do you think I'm lying, Steve? I'm not. I believe that communities deserve more. We deserve much more than a press conference to pretend like you care about us.
And this is the thing where he's just pretending to be on the phone, and just that bit, just tell us about that. It was so defining of him and their whole response.
Right. Well, if you do look at when I did get a chance to look at the phone, which he showed me, right? I don't know. Again, to me, that's all dismissiveness, right? It's a way of saying, this girl found me. And by the way, I'm a woman. I'm a little older, but this girl found me and I'm going to mock her. And he did. And that's why when I said, I think on Jesse Waters, I felt dismissed. And that's what they let us burn is really about.
Because he said he was on the phone to the president.
Yeah, was he? No, he wasn't. First of all, he was speaking to me. So he wasn't on any phone call. Secondly, the 2 phone numbers that were at the top of his list were his wife's number. So he had called her twice. And there were minutes, you know, behind him. So he had 2 phone calls there. I did see the White House on there. But then the more important question comes. I'm riding around with a news crew, Sky News Australia. They had phones that worked, Steve. Why does the governor of California not have a phone that works? And when I asked to be on the line to listen to that call, why should I not have been on that call? Why? I'm a paying constituent whose entire community, your decisions just took down. And I have to sit here and beg you to listen.
It really captured the whole attitude. So now let's bring us up to date. So we'll be together on the 7th, the 1-year anniversary. We've got some announcements that you and I are making about what I would do as governor broadly across. There's not just in relation to the Palisades, but broadly on fire prevention and response with emergency services and so on, and the whole emergency system, which is obviously a disaster in California, like everything else, not run properly, just clueless people wasting our money.
We've been living off of a reputation, Steve.
Exactly, but they're talking about the Palisades aspect of it, because you're right. You know you're in that community, so there's a protest there. They let us burn. Talk about that.
So it's an opportunity for Palisadians, the ones that burned, literally and figuratively. We lost 12 actual lives. But if you think for a second that we're limited to the number 12, you're sadly mistaken. it's an opportunity for us to revisit something again, a catastrophe that should never have happened. We need to call things what they are, not climate change. We may believe in climate and change, but on that day, don't make us look stupid, because we know what happened. We know what it's about, and we know that it was neglect. So I think when people say they let us burn, they're not saying Newsom lit the match, but what we're saying is you had a lot of part in it, right? You and Karen. So what do we want to be there to let the world know? We want the world to know what we went through and that it doesn't have to happen. And we want to be heard. So this is not a PR campaign. We don't have, the hired guns that the Democratic machine does in California to turn a story into whatever it is. But I think what we feel is they've turned a catastrophe into another political stunt, right? How can we take it back from them? And if you talk to me and the other Palisadians, we're actually doing things. I know Spencer's involved, and we have a lot of voices that you may know about. But the beauty of the Palisades, and the reason we are what I call elite, is that we are elite in every sense. In the sense that we wanted this community to be the greatest, and we will get it there again, Steve, with you, with the right preparedness, without the bureaucracy that people like Gavin Newsom create. And then they come to you and say, oh, well, it's too bad we can't do anything about it.
So what is the feeling for those who won't be with us and see it on Wednesday and may just see a couple of clips or whatever? It's a year on. We had Gavin Newsom promising that, I think on the same time, around the same time he was there with you, he did this NBC News interview in the smouldering ruins of the Palisades, and he said, this is the thing that struck me. He said, this is, I think, a few days after your encounter with him, right? He said, we are developing a Marshall Plan to rebuild. Marshall Plan. That was like what they did to rebuild Europe after the Second World War. Everything was right. So we're a year on. How is the Gavin Newsom Marshall Plan going in the Palisades?
I have the receipts from Gavin. I have, not from him personally, but from his office, who, by the way, I've never had personal contact with Gavin. I have a contact with Izzy Garden. And what Izzy has told me from the very first day was, don't worry, there's a plan. That scared me, right? That scared me because from the very first day, my messages to him, and I have the receipts, have been, don't make this a land grab. Don't make this a political thing. Leave us alone or get away, right? He could have stepped away from this, but he didn't. It is a land grab. Don't lie to us. When we see Chinese investors running around town buying up properties that belong to my friend from 1984, it kills me, right? It didn't have to be this way. But while I stand up and I can proceed, Steve, there's a lot of people that can't. The Palisades are not made up of all people in their 50s, able-bodied, ready and willing to go. Most of the people I know are having the hardest time of their lives. Because one thing, if you want to ask me what the overlying theme is amongst me and my fellow Palisadians, what's the theme? If you have it or you don't, it doesn't matter. It's insurance. It's the thing that scares us the most, and it's the only thing that has kept some of us alive. So what is the feeling? The feeling is, God, we were just living these lives, and now we started to pay attention to the most mundane of things. Who's in power? How much money is in your, how much money is in the bank? How much water is in your reservoir? Are your hydrants compatible with the reservoir or with the demands that are going to be? These are the most boring questions, right? Are you going to waive permit fees? ULA, all of these things, so boring. But now our lives are consumed with how much insurance are you going to get? Our leaders, are there plans to prevent this? Remember,
It's amazing that you've still got. Okay, let's just break it down. I want to, there's a whole set of policy stuff about prevention and why it should never have happened, and the water and all of that, right? We're going to talk about that, and we'll probably come back next week and do it in next week's episode once we've laid that all out. I want to get you, just in the few minutes we have left, just to focus on the bit that, the part where your testimony is so valuable because you're just experiencing it. And it seems to me there are two broad things going on here, right? One is the land grab part, which is very important for us all to understand. And then the second is the hassle of even a year on, it still hasn't all those things that were said. You know, we're going to make a one-stop shop, we're going to expedite this, and we're going to make that simple. What it still hasn't happened, right? So just talk about those two as separate things. Let's talk about the hassle factor of getting everything sorted, the permits and the insurance and whatever. What is the current state of play?
So in my mind, there's sort of three boxes you can put in for all of us. It's the disbelief that the thing even happened in the first place. The second stage is really boxes knowing that there is an invisible danger that we will all have to deal with. The smoke damage, the fire damage, it's real. So there are invisible dangers that we are dealing with. The third is what you're talking about that has always been here, but it is now front and center, and it is even worse, bureaucracy. We're in the middle of it right now, and it's requiring people to pay attention. What has happened is I think you've got a new generation of people that are paying attention because the disaster hit home, right? It hit my backyard, it hit my kid. So in the state of bureaucracy that we are in, we have a group of people who are trying to make changes. I know people here who are reaching out to senators across the aisle, across the 50 states, because we know we can go elsewhere for help, not here. So the bureaucracy in California is so deep that it's either got to be exploded, blown up, as we hope it's going to be with the election system, but being stuck in the delay system of insurance, of who's making decisions. And then you have to understand below there are levels here. There is the level of the person that lost their home. That's one level. Then there's the people who have lost everything outside of their home, let's say, and there's interior smoke damage. There are different kinds of us, but there is not a person out there that has led any group of us in a correct way, in a way that helps us. So I've got a little bit of direction here. I've got a little bit of direction there because my home is still standing. People with not standing homes may have a little bit more direction. But what does this do?
So what is actually happening? So what's the issue? Like, it's a year. So are people still in a process of applying for a permit and not getting it? Is that still happening?
That is still happening because
how? I mean, that just seems crazy.
Why is it crazy when you have Karen Bass? Karen Bass came out like a week after the fire and told everybody. She had a press conference. She had her picture up. She had her photos everywhere. Said, I will be at this place on a particular street. I'll be there every day. My crew will be there, and you will fast track your permits. That's shut down. What's gone?
Wow. What about the what's the insurance situation? So you're not getting paid the amount that is needed to rebuild, and the risk of the future. What's going on with the insurance?
So delay is their favorite word, and
they're delaying as well, and so the government is not doing anything to help with that.
No. So we not only have a broken system, but then when you're in the system, right? Because I have to thank my stars that I wasn't one of the ones that was dropped by State Farm, which, like I said, insurance, Steve, is one of those angles that can change your electorate altogether. All of us were in the same boat. I was reinsured on a home, well, that was insured for about 5 times, 6 times, 7 times more last year. When they came to renew me for the full year that they're supposed to, I got renewed for 1/8, maybe even more of my full coverage. So if something happens right now, I am pretty much not going to be covered, even though I have State Farm. Who did this? Who did this to me? I know where it started from. I know that the leadership is allowing, and Laura is allowing these things to happen.
Laura is the state insurance commission.
Yeah. Right. So we need a new Laura. In fact, I've messaged Izzy about this. I've said, we can't. I woke up at 2 a.m. wondering, what am I going to do if something does happen this year? What am I going to do? And that's not just me.
Yeah. It's amazing that this is still and so would you say, I don't know, just put a percentage on it. Like, let's say 100% is the Palisades community, right? And so what percent of residents whose homes were either completely lost or interiors gutted or smoke, the range of things of that whole community, what percent would you say has received service broadly from government, insurance, whatever, that they're happy with a year on? What percentage are happy with how it's worked out?
Probably a very unintelligible number. That means what it is. It's an unintelligible number. The percentage is unintelligible, but it is on purpose. The whole system, whether it is our government or it is our insurance, which I find one and the same, their purpose is to delay. The purpose is to run you down, Steve, so that I say, okay, it's a year later and I don't feel like doing this for the 12th time with you anymore, right? It's the 12th time I'm telling you that the bedroom that my daughter sleeps in has the particular smoke damage I'm telling you, and you don't want to accept it. They're expecting me.
Is that what's happening with you?
Well, it's happening to a lot of people, but specifically, they will make you.
So they're challenging your claims.
That's exactly what they do. They look at smoke damage and they will tell you to your face, that happened years ago. You have no ability to prove it, and that's that. Or you've got lead in your home. It's there. I'm sorry, I've got a child or an elderly person. I should not go home until the lead is not there, which means in many cases replacing everything. And that's not a superficial thing. That is actually scientific. But when politics takes the place of science and money, we get screwed. And this is their tactic. There is no bigger insurance tactic than delay. And delay means I forget or I don't remember it. And
this is what brings us to the land grab, because it's that sense of, I just can't fight that. I can't, like you said, the 12th time, or I can't face it anymore. I give up, and you sell to the Chinese investor or whatever it is. Close us out now by just talking about the land grab and what you're hearing, what's going on. There's so much swirling around about this, legislation to turn it into low-income housing. Did that happen or not happen? What's the latest on the land grab aspect?
Competence should not be optional. This is not optional, Steve. Your competence is not optional. The land grab was such a natural evolution of what happened because of the preparation that was made to put us in this position. When you've told Laura, get rid of 75% of the insured, and I promise you, you can reinsure them for higher later. Oops, and then the fire happens. So, there's so much in between, go back and forth between the two. The land grab was inevitable, but that's because the prior stuff made it so easy. When you have legislation in the works to take over fire-ravaged territories, see, that's what scares us. We pay into a system. We pay and we play right by the rules, and we even wait and we accommodate the government and the superficiality. So at the end of the day, we cannot thrive when we are being held back by our own government that we elected.
It's amazing.
We're not going to.
It's so unbelievable. Like, when you think about this last year, and you're all still there battling all this nonsense, and many are just giving up, and we'll be there with the crowd, on Wednesday, like very strong, big crowd saying, like, you haven't done what you said, even close. And what has Gavin Newsom been doing this last year? What's he been actually doing? Writing this book that's coming out in a couple of months. He's been trolling Trump on social media. He's been running around doing his podcast, like everything except actually his job.
Everything. You would think he had a golden opportunity with someone like me. I wouldn't have taken it, right? Of course, I wouldn't played into his needs or whatever, but he had an opportunity to tell us, to speak through us and say, no, we are going to do things, or we aren't going to do that, or we're going to make it better. We didn't get that.
And also, it's amazing because he's actually running for president. You'd think even a halfway sort of competent person would say, this is a great opportunity for me. And forget his obligation as the governor to actually do something for his constituents. Never mind that. Okay, just forget that he actually has any sense of obligation or duty, just like pure cynical self-interest. A vaguely competent look. This is a great opportunity for me to show what a great president I would be by being an amazing leader for the past, like just that. Would take it, right, if it led to a good outcome. He couldn't even do that.
No, but this is 30 years, guys. You've given the state to this guy for 30 years in some way, shape, or form. Stop it.
It's unbelievable, but we're going to change it because we can't go on like this. And it's such a symbol of their failure. That's why it's so important we make it loud and clear what's been going on, what hasn't happened. And I'm just incredibly proud to be supporting you and helping to amplify your voice and everyone else. And also laying out some specific plans for how we do better in the future. So, Rachel, I just want to say thank you. It's been wonderful to get to know you. And there's a lot more that you and I will be doing this year on a whole range of things beyond this, which I'm very much looking forward to. Thanks so much for being with us today.
Thank you, Steve, for having me. Governor, thank you so much for having me. Thanks.
When it's time to go, you can choose how. You can wait for enforcement, or you can leave on your terms. The CBP Home app lets you self-deport with dignity, directly, and securely. Don't wait. Decide how it ends.
Crying harder. Crying harder. Trump is your president. Crying harder. Crying harder. Trump is your president.
On the 3 unfired casings read, "Hey fascist!" exclamation point, "Catch!" exclamation point.
Do you think Donald Trump is a fascist?
Yes, I do.
No one has ever been more dangerous to this country than Donald Trump, and he is a fascist to his core.
Hey, let me shut down the Senate! We are at war!
We're in a war right now.
We are at war.
So you have to be willing to do whatever is necessary in order to save the country.
And that's why the gloves are off.
Donald Trump and the MAGA Republicans represent an extremism that threatens the very foundations of our republic.
And yes, there are many threats to democracy. We see it with these extreme candidates.
I just don't even know why there aren't uprisings all over the country, and maybe there will be.
But you can only push people so far. And then they start to take matters into their own hands.
What the American public want is for us to bring actual weapons to this bar fight. This is an actual fight.
You know, this is literally call to arms.
The MAGA movement is a threat.
But Michelle says that, when they go low, we go high.
No. With all due respect, if they go low, we don't go high.
When they go low, we kick them.
We take them to the mud and choke them out.
And make sure that they stay down. And you know what? Kick them when they're down, because they deserve it.
Get up in the face of some Congress people.
We are going to be in your face. We are going to be on your...
We have to fight this in the streets.
We're going to fight it in the streets. It's time to step out of your comfort zone and step out into the streets.
To our Republican colleagues, if you do not see the light, we will bring the fire. Resist! You and your little friend off of Twitter. Y'all about to find out.
And if you see anybody from that cabinet in a restaurant, in a department store, at a gasoline station, you get out and you create a crowd. And you push back on them. And you tell them they're not welcome anymore, anywhere.
He's not going to have a third term. He may not finish this term.
That's the last few days you woke up thinking there might be news. Just saying. Just saying. There will be news sometime. Just so you know, there will be news.
I want to be remembered for courage for my faith. That would be the most important thing. The most important thing is my faith in my life.
But if you're not happy in the U.S., if you're complaining all the time, very simply, you can leave. You can leave right now. Come back if you want. Don't come back. It's okay, too. But if you're not happy, you can leave.